Alright guys, so we are going to start off this series by looking for an oil leak in a very common area in E46 BMWs. So before you start throwing parts, highly recommend you just take a look at your oil filter housing gasket. So we're gonna pop off these pull tabs right here. There's 3, Michael has 2. Alright, so let's start by pulling this guy off. Alright, so now your air filter housing should pop off pretty easily. Next you have 2 10mm screw bolts to take out from here. Let's just get this out. Disconnect your mass airflow sensor and loosen up the intake boot. So the C-clamp on the intake boot is 6mm and the bolts on the airbox are 10mm. And if your intake box is stuck like mine, you could take a flat head and there's 3 tabs. Pull it off that way. Just get it off like I did. There's a clip right here that connects to one of these hoses. There you go. You got your airbox out of the way. And let's take a look at this. Right here. So if you have oil, if you have an oil leak towards the front of your engine, a lot of times it can be this oil filter housing gasket, which is right back here. And from what I can tell, if we zoom right in this area, I don't see any oil leaks right now, but we are going to keep checking. I actually have a, I'm using Wickle Molly Molly Gem, which has a UV dye, so I'm going to take a look and see any UV light. And from what I can see, there's no leak around the oil filter housing gasket. Yeah, and if there were any leaks coming from here, they'd definitely be visible. So I'd say we're good. All right, that was the first video. So if you don't see any leaks around this waffled area of your engine, I'd say you're good. So the next step would be to you know, get under the car and see if maybe your power steering is leaking from here, or if you know, it's the oil pan gasket. That's a big one and it's a big job, but that's about it. So I'm gonna put everything back together and see you in the next one. All right, so I also have a second UV light that I've been using, and this one kind of is a little bit stronger and possibly a little bit better at checking for leaks. So I'm just gonna check again. Down here, back here. But really, honestly, I'm not seeing anything. And most videos don't show you how to put stuff back together, so I'm gonna do that. First thing you're gonna do, you know, make sure your box here is clean. It looks pretty good for now. And first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna clip back this hose right onto the airbox. Back on, and we'll tighten that down at the end. Alright, so this right here did come apart, and this is from what I was showing you guys earlier, which is the I guess it's another area for air to come in. So let's see what the best way to go about putting that back in is. Putting this part back in first into where it goes. You press and then try to get your airbox in. After that, so I think I don't think that the best idea would be to put this rubber hose connector on, because is heavily impeding us from getting anything down in here that it needs to go. So let's start again. I am going to put this part in, clip it back in, put the gearbox in just like so, and it seems to be fitting perfectly. But we are catching some things. Alright, so after a little bit of just, wiggling everything around, just make sure that these hoses, this intake boot and MAF connector are completely clear of the gearbox itself. I figured out the best way to get that front part that I unclipped and then clipped back on was just leaving it in its area and kind of fitting the airbox around that would be the best way to put it back on. Now let's hook this back in now that our airbox is in its place. Make sure none of your clips for your air filter are unhooked. Get this boot back on. Get the sequin back on and make sure that it's completely flush with the airbox, so you don't have any leaks. All right. Next, while holding that together, just grab your ratchet and tighten that down. Alright, that's good. Now you can connect your mass airflow sensor right here, and then you'll take your two 10mm bolts, I just like to hand start them. They don't need to be super tight, but alright, that's good. And now you'll get this part. Connect that back right in here. Right, and grab your two pieces, push that in. Grab this one, make sure your tools aren't stuck in there like mine were. Push that in. And you're done. You've successfully checked for your first BMW oil leak without getting underneath the car, and we know that our oil filter housing gasket is not leaking, so that's some money saved right there.